Hello everybody, welcome to Word Shard.
So students, let us begin the blue bead today. I had promised that we will begin with the blue bead and let's start it. Today will be a complete video class. There would be no PDF because this is just a story and I'll try to make it as easy as possible to you all. Let's read. From deep water came the crocodile. So you see, we are describing a kind of place where there is a crocodile in the river. Out of black water, curved with whirlpools and into the frill of gold shallows by the stepping stones. So you see what are shallows? These are, where the depth of the water is not much, little bit of depth. And near the shore, when you see a pond or something, you can see, or when you go to a river, you will see that you can step on the river and walk for a space, because that part is shallow. That part does not have so much water as is there in the middle of the river. So there is the water near the bank is a little shallow. He was twice the length of a tall man. And who is this he? He is the crocodile. He was twice the length of a tall man. So this crocodile was huge in size. It was just two men, one after the other, that much length. And inside him, among the stones which he had swallowed to aid digestion, rolled a silver bracelet. So you see, its mouth was open. As you see a crocodile in the zoo, its mouth is open, and there are stones among the teeth that he has. So that kind of, in that open mouth there is also a silver bracelet. Okay. Timber was being floated down this great Indian river from forests further up, and there were sleepers lying stuck around the stones until someone came to dislodge them and send them on their way, or until floods lifted them and jostled them along. So you see, timber, that means pieces of wood. The businessmen used to take help of the river current, that the water moves from the top to the lower parts, isn't it? So they used to take the help of the river current to move the huge number of piles of wood that they needed to carry to some other place. Therefore, the timber used to float down, down with the river current. And sometimes what happened, by the nooks and corners of these rivers, these wood got stuck, and people had to come to dislodge it, come to remove it from that corner, so that it again went with the stream or went with the current. So the crocodile had no need to hide himself. He came to rest in the glassy shallows among logs, and balanced there on tiptoe on the rippled sand, with only his raised eyes out of the water and raised nostrils breathing the clean sunny air. What do you see? The crocodile is not at all afraid of anybody. Just by the corner of those, the nooks and corners of the streams, the sides of the river, there all those woods were stuck. They were not with the flow of the water, and they were stuck at some corners of the river. And there the crocodile, in that shallow bit of water, he was resting. He was not afraid of anybody. So around him, broad sparkling water travelled between cliffs and grass and forested hills. So what is happening? You see, all around the crocodile, the nature, the surrounding is quite like when you go to the mountains and see a forest, and the mountains around it, and there are trees, there are shrubs, there are grasses, there are rivers also. In the same way, imagine that kind of a river, and by the sides of the river there are some woods stuck, and there, with the logs of woods, the crocodile is also resting. A jungle track came out of scrub each side and down to the sun-whitened stepping stones, on which a little flycatcher was flirting and trilling along. So a little flycatcher, that is a bird, it was jumping on the tops of those stones. You see, big rocks and boulders on the river water. When you go to a river in the mountains, you will see those rocks. So that's rocks and pebbles were all on the sides of the river, and on the stepping stone which you use to get down to the river, there the flycatcher was singing and moving around. The mugger crocodile, blackish brown above and yellowy white under. That means you have seen the crocodiles, isn't it? It is some kind of blackish brown in color from the top, and below it you see the white, some kind of, they are yellowy white under. Lay motionless, it is not at all moving, able to wait forever till food came. It seemed that the crocodile could just open its mouth and just wait and wait without making any movement, and can easily catch its prey. Okay, so next we'll move on to the next line. This antediluvian saurian means somebody who belonged to the prehistoric era. When you see a crocodile, you feel that it is some kind of coming from the age of a dinosaur, or coming from a time of prehistoric period. And the prehistoric juggernaut, this is a big kind of animal, okay, and what it is ferocious and formidable, a vast force in the water. When it moves in the water, it is a lot of force in the water, a lot of energy in the water, propelled by an unimaginable and irresistible power of the huge tail, lay lapped by ripples, a throb in his throat. So it has just opened its mouth, and there is just this thing throbbing, and you can understand that the pulse is beating. And you see, it is a kind of an animal that is very ferocious in water, and it uses the tail that it has like a propeller, as you see in a boat, or you see at the back of it, it helps it to move and change direction. His mouth running almost the whole length of his head. When you see the crocodile, you see that its mouth is till the end of the head, and was closed and fixed in that evil bony smile, and where the yellow underside came up to it, it was tinged with green. So you see that fixed in that evil bony smile, it seemed that when the crocodile opened its mouth, it was like a bony smile all along the jaw. There was teeth and teeth and teeth right up to the head. Okay, so it was just lying on the on that bank of the river, and with a bony smile, its mouth was open, and we could see the teeth. And where the yellow underside came up to it, it was tinged with green. So the underside of the mouth, when you see it, okay, just below the place, just below your tongue, below the crocodile's, if the crocodile had a tongue, then the lower part of the tongue, that side, that part of the mouth was greenish. It was some kind of a moss or something had grown in his mouth, and so it was looking very whitish with a green tinge, or a little bit of green color. From the day, perhaps 100 years ago, when the sun had hatched him in a sandbank, that means what is the thing that we are now talking about? That is the time when this crocodile was young. So it was born, the egg was laid on the sandbank, okay, just a little bit away from the river, and he had broken his shell and got his head out and looked around, ready to snap at anything before he was even fully hatched. So just that moment when the egg had hatched a little bit, from then the crocodile had brought out its mouth from the egg and tried to catch and bite anything that was near it. And once ready to fend for himself immediately, so as soon as it was born, it knew that it had to find its food himself. There was no mother or father who was going to take care of it, and that is why he had lived by his brainless craft and ferocity. It was extremely ferocious, dangerous, but it was also brainless. It was not very wise to take wise decisions, but it was very ferocious and dangerous, escaping the birds of prey and the great carnivorous fishes that eat baby crocodiles. When the crocodile was small, then it had to face a lot of danger. It could be eaten away by any big fish or birds, but he had prospered, catching all the food he needed and storing it still putrid in holes in the bank. So the crocodile collected the food that it wanted to have, and when it was, it was stale, it was wasted, smell was coming out from it, became putrid, then what happened? Then it could have it. Tepid water, that means lukewarm water, which is neither too hot nor too warm, and that kind of a water it used to live, and plenty of rotted food grew him to his great length. So slowly from that small size it grew into a very big size, and it had a lot of rotten food also. That means the putrid which lay putrid in the holes. Now nothing could pierce the inch-thick armored hide, not even rifle bullets. And now the crocodile has become so strong that even rifle bullets could not harm or hurt the body of the crocodile, which would bounce off. Only the eyes and the soft underarms offered a place. So only the eyes, which were soft, and the underarms just below your hand, that part was soft. So if one shot over there, then it could be hurt. He lived well in the river, sunning himself sometimes with other crocodiles. Muggers. Muggers means another type of attacking crocodiles who often attack people. So it used to take rest with other crocodiles, as well as the long-snouted fish-eating gharials. You have seen this in the Alipur Zoo also. Like it has a strong beak-like protruding mouth. Okay, that is the fish-eating crocodile. So on warm rocks and sandbanks where the sun dried the clay on them quite white, and where they could plop off into the water in a moment if alarmed. So the crocodiles used to take rest in such a place which was shallow, not much water was there, but it knew that whenever there was danger on land, it could just slip off into the water. Okay. The big crocodile fed mostly on fish, but also on deer and monkeys that came to drink, perhaps a duck or two. So whenever certain things used to come to the river to drink water, like deer or monkeys or duck, it used to get hold of it and have it. But sometimes here at the ford, he fed on a pie dog full of parasites, or a skeleton cow, a very lean cow. It fed on that also. It fed on the domestic dogs also. And sometimes he went down to the burning carts and found the half-burned bodies of Indians cast into the stream. So you see, certain bodies were also which were not burnt or buried. It was cast into the river water. So sometimes the crocodile used to go and eat those dead bodies also. Now questions can come that what did the crocodile feed on, and what were the dangers that the crocodile faced when it was young, all these questions. Okay. Beside him in the shoals, as he lay waiting, glimmered a blue gem. So just beside that, where the large number of fishes were swimming in that particular place, there was the blue gem that was lying, a crystal or a little bit of a jewel, a gem that was blue in color, which was just beside this crocodile. It was not a gem though, it was sand-worn glass that had been rolling about in the river for a long time. What happens is, when there is a glass piece in the river, there is sand below it, isn't it? Sand and pebbles and rocks. So there is constant friction, and what happens is the glass can become rounded in nature just like a gem. So by chance it was perforated right through. Perforated means there was a hole within it, and the neck of the bottle perhaps a blue bead. So it might have been a neck of any bottle or something. Just you have a bottle, that bottle's neck, that might be of glass, and it had a hole also on top. So when it just broke and fell into the river, it was under constant friction. What happened was it became circular like a gem, blue in color. In the shrill noisy village above the ford, out of a mud house, the same color as the ground, came a little girl, a thin, starveling child dressed in an earth-colored rag. Now, we are talking about the village which is very close to this river. What happens is, there a little girl comes out from that village, and the skin color of this girl is just like the ground, the dusty brown ground. So the girl is dark complexion, and she's also wearing an earth colored rag. That means they are very poor. It shows that the girl is very poor. She's wearing rags, torn and old clothes. She had torn the rag in two to make skirt and sari. So she has torn that rag also into two parts, so that she could wear it as a skirt also, wrap it around, and also wear it as a sari. Sibia was eating the last of a meal, chapati wrapped round a smear of green chili and rancid butter, and she divided this also to make it seem more and bit more, showing straight white teeth. Now the girl was so poor, when she was given chapati, okay, there was green chili and a little bit of butter, and it was rolled out into in that chapati. What she was doing was, she has divided it into two parts, and then she divides it more and eats it with the white teeth open, like slowly she bites it and swallows it, just to feel that she is getting to eat a lot of food, but actually she is eating only one chapati, but breaking it into a number of parts shows that she is having a lot, gives her a feeling that she is having a lot of food. With her ebony hair and great eyes, and her skin of oiled brown cream, that means dark complexion, brown in color, she was happy, immature child woman, about 12 years old. Now question, why is she called a child woman? She is called a child woman because you see, she has to do a lot of work for the house, to earn the bread for the house, or to earn money. But she's also very young. She's just a little girl, 12 years old. So she's a child woman. About 12 years old, barefoot of course, she was wearing no shoes, and often goosey cold on a winter morning, and born to toil. She was born to work a lot. She had to work for the family, and sometimes because she did not have a proper shoe, she did not have a proper dress, she often, she felt very cold when she had no shoes that she could wear when it was winter. In all her life, she had never owned anything but a rag, so she did not have any dress. She just had those rags, the old torn clothes that she could wear. She had never owned even one anna, not a pice, not a pie, even to buy, say, a handful of blown glass beads from that stall in the bazaar where they were piled like stars, or one of the thin glass bangles that the man kept on a stick and you could choose which color you would have. Now imagine you going to a fair. What you see in a mela or a fair? You see there are lots of things that are, they are kept in that place from where you can buy. You can buy glass bangles. They are all decorated and exhibited over there, and you can just choose which bangle you want. So this girl also has seen a huge number of bangles, glass bangles of different color that the seller used to display on a stick, different color, different sticks. So she saw that, but she could not buy them from the bazaar because she did not have a pice, a pie, nothing. She had no money to buy anything, even a handful of blown glass beads from that stall. There were beads also that were sold. So she could just buy the beads and make a necklace or something for her. But she did not have money to buy that. Neither did she have money to buy bangles. Okay. She knew what finery was though. She had been with her parents and brothers all through the jungle to the little town at the railhead where there was this bazaar. So she knew what finery was. She knew how one could decorate herself as a young woman. She knew all that. But the problem is, and she also went with her parents and brothers all through the jungle and to the little town where there was this bazaar and huge number of beautiful things were sold. So she had seen all that thing. And she had walked through all the milling people, the dogs, the monkeys, full of fleas, full of pests on their bodies, the idling, gossiping, bargaining humanity, spitting Beetlejuice. You see now when somebody goes to the market, they bargain over the price, they talk a lot with other people, they chew beetle leaf. Okay. Heard the bell of a sacred bull clonking as he lumped along through the dust and hubble. So among all those commotion in a marketplace, she goes, she sees all those finery set around, the beautiful bangles and all that, but she cannot buy them because she does not have money. She sees the cows, the bulls that are carried through the market. She sees the people buying those things, bargaining over something, but she did not have money to buy anything for herself. She had paused amazed before the sweetmeat stall. Now, we are going to see a number of descriptions about what she saw in the market. There was a sweetmeat stall, that means sweets were sold over there. To gaze at the brilliant honey confections abuzz with dust and flies. So all those sweets were decorated in the shop, displayed, and there were flies over it. Okay, this smelled wonderful. Above the smells of drains and humanity and cheap cigarettes, so in a market you also find smells of cigarettes and beetle leaf and then drains. Okay, nasty smell from the drains. But even then, the smell of the sweets were hovering around all around. At home, she sometimes tasted wild honey or crunched the syrup out of a stalk of sugarcane. You know, sugarcane, you can bite them and you bring out the juice of it. That is also sweet. So she got that, sometimes little bit of wild honey also. But she did not get, these sweets were green and magenta. So these sweets were different and tasted obviously differently. And they were green and magenta in color. Next, what do we see? Then there was the cloth stall, stacked with great rolls of new cotton cloth, stamped at the edge with the maker's sign of a tiger's head. Now you see there is a cloth stall also. This is the sweet shop. Next is the cloth stall, where there are great rolls of new cotton cloth. You've seen it? They are rolled around the stick, and they are all displayed over there. Stamped at the edge with the maker's sign, there is the maker's sign stamped on it, that who has made that. That kind of a stamp is of a tiger's head. That is the logo of who has made it. And smelling so wonderful of its dressing. There is a smell of that cloth, isn't it? Straight from the mills. Those have come from the mills, just from the factory, and they are smelling so beautiful. Sibia could have stood by it all day. So Sibia is the name of the girl, and she was so fond of these things that she could just stand there and see them and think about them throughout. But there were other wonders to see. Now there are other things also in the market. What are those? Satin sewn with real silver thread, tin trays from Birmingham, and a sari which had got chips of looking glass embroidered into the border. So what do we see? Satin sewn with real silver thread. There was pieces of cloth which were beautifully decorated with silver thread from Birmingham. Sari that had got chips of small glasses are used to decorate the sari. That is also there. She joined the crowd round a Kashmiri traveling merchant. You know, Kashmiri people have beautiful clothes to decorate their saris or shawls. So he was showing dawn colored silks that poured like cream. There were dawn colored silks that was like cream, white in color, and he had got a little locket chest with turquoise and opals in it. There were beautiful gems also that were inside that box. Best of all, a box which, when you pressed it, a bell tinkled and a yellow woolen chicken jumped out. So there was another box, and when you pressed it, a bell started tinkling and a chicken would come out and start screaming. There was no end to the wonders of the world. So from here she came to know that there are so many beautiful things in the world. But Sibia, in all her life, from birth to death, was marked for work. But Sibia had no time to stand over here and see all this, because she had to work. Since she could toddle, she had husked corn. Since she was just a little girl, she is husking corn. That means she's removing the shell from the corn. And what? And gathering sticks, put dung to dry. Dung was used for different purposes. It is also now used also. Cooked and weeded, and carried and fetched water and cut grass for fodder. For the animals that they had in the house, the domestic animals, you also had to cut grass. So there were a huge number of tasks that were assigned to her. So you also remember what works did Sibia do although she was a child. When you write why is she called a child woman, you can include these points also. She was going with her mother and some other women now to get paper grass. What is paper grass? You see, this is a kind of grass which you collect and you can make paper out of it. So these women used to go to that place. This grows by the side of the hills and the mountains. So you have to go to the top, take all of them, collect those grasses, bundle them and bring them back. And with the help of the agents, they are sold to the mills. That is written over here. So you could take it down by bullock cart to the railhead and sell it to the agent, who would arrange for its dispatch to the paper mills. This agent will now take it to the mills and sell it. The women often toiled all day at his work, and the agent sat on silk cushions smoking a hookah. Hookah is a tobacco smelling process. Okay, so this was a situation that these women used to go do such a difficult task, and then they used to work all day long. And what did the agent do? He just sat on silk cushions and waited. Then when everything was brought to him, he went and sold it to the mills. Okay, but the real money the agents got. These women were already very poor. Okay, such thoughts did trouble Sibia. However, as she skipped along with her sickle, you know, the thing we used to cut grass, and homemade hay fork. Hay fork is something like a fork. It looks like a fork. So that is also kind of thing that you use to collect grass and all. You could skip on the way out, but not on the way back when you ached with tiredness. So while you are going uphill, while you are starting your journey, then that time they were very, they could just skip and jump and go, because they were not carrying heavy loads. But while returning, they had all those grass collected. That was a heavy bunch, so they could not jump any longer. They were tired through the day's work, and there was a great load to carry. First, because they were tired, they did not wish to jump any longer, although she is a young girl, and she also had to carry that load, although she was young. So she did not find that much energy to jump back. But now she is journeying. The day has started and she is going to collect the paper grass. So here we stop. I have tried a new way. I have started this direct interaction with you all instead of using PDFs, and try and see if it is easier for you, or if you require a better and more explanation for this. And if you find it's fine, then I hope your comments are always welcome for me, and it will help me to grow. And if you like it, if you think that this is helpful to you, you can comment, subscribe and share with your friends, and hoping to see more comments from you. Thank you. And yes, today's question before I end would be that why is Sibia called a child woman? Okay, this is a very important question. So this question I have set for today. This is a 2-mark question, or you can also write it for 3. It can come for both 2 mark and 3 mark. Accordingly, you can write. You write it for 3 marks. The question is, why is Sibia called a child woman? Okay, let's finish our class for today, and I hope you have liked my videos and you obviously know what you have to do. Thank you so much. Bye bye.